Welcome back in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 following a big day in American politics, and we will not talk about politics here. Joined now by Mike Gill from 97.3 ESPN down the shore. Mike, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, my man?
I'm doing all right. I'm ready for what should be an interesting Dallas week. It doesn't seem to have the same flair.
No juice with Cooper Rush. No juice.
Juiceless, in this Dallas week.
Kellen Moore likes him, though. Last time Cooper Rush had to play, he had to start 5 games and he won 4 of them.
Yeah.
And Kellen Moore was there, obviously, as the offensive coordinator at the time. So he's very, very familiar with him. The one game he lost was to the Eagles.
I think he was actually 5-1.
Was he 5-1? Maybe.
I think he was 5-1. I saw that yesterday, that graphic, and I was saying, "Oh, maybe this is an upgrade." Now, listen, I remember that time where people were actually wondering whether or not.
Yeah. And then he threw 3 interceptions against the Eagles.
Yeah, he was bad that night. Yeah. I mean, this Dallas team's a disaster so far. I mean, but keep in mind, I don't know what their injury situation is. They've been playing without Parsons, Dexter Lawrence on defense. That does change a little bit for them in terms of pass rush. They're still not a team that can stop the run very well. I don't know if Parsons is going to play this week, where that stands, but they just had this team. I've been very, I don't want to say high on the Cowboys, but I've been someone who's constantly the last kind of like 3 years of this Eagles-Cowboys flipping back and forth, who has kind of said, look, they're the more talented team. They're just poorly run, poorly coached, and that's really been the difference. Well, they're poorly run. See, they're poorly run, but they do draft well. They find talent. Yes. They just don't approach when to re-sign them, when to give them the contract. They do a terrible job there. I've been trying to think, too. I don't remember. I mean, you look at the Yankees, because most Cowboys fans are Yankees fans, so they can relate.
I'm a Yankees fan. I'm not a Cowboys fan.
I'm just saying. I mean, I think that
is a major.
Tell me that's not true.
No, that's what people just follow front runners. But even that,
there's a lot of people who are fans of both, so they can relate. So the Yankees go out and get top level free agents. They are a team that gets the big and spends. The Cowboys, I cannot think of a free agent that they brought in of any impact at all. Like, you would think this Cowboys team, they don't do it at all. They draft well, and then they let the guys play the contracts out, and then they wait too long to re-sign them. Then they overpay for them, and they get themselves in this cycle constantly. It's unbelievable that they do this, and they have a team in their division that is probably their main rival, debatable, I guess, and they don't look and say, man, what does Philadelphia do that we're doing that we can maybe try to emulate to get out of this cycle of mess that we're constantly in? And, man, this is going to be an interesting, because now they're going to be bad enough that they might be a top 5 team, and they just signed the quarterback. So what do you do if you're one of the worst 5 teams? This is great.
Yeah, from the standpoint of and you're right about Will McClay. He's one of the best personnel guys in the NFL. That's what's kind of, bloated the Cowboys' boat. They've been a great regular season team and then failed in the playoffs. Now this year they're terrible in the regular season. Now part of that is injuries. Let's be honest. I mean, when you don't have Micah Parsons, you don't have DeMarcus Lawrence, you're not going to be as good. No. And they also had, Deron Bland, who was, an all-pro corner last year, had not been playing. He might play this week. Trayvon Diggs is hurt again. So they have a lot of talent still on, I would say, on the defensive side. Offensively, boy, man, they've been a disaster. They got one good player, CeeDee Lamb.
Yes, CD. The running situation's awful.
The running back situation. The offensive line, which has usually been a strength. Zach Martin's going to Hall of Fame, but he's older.
They drafted 2 offensive linemen. Hasn't worked out. They have no running game at all. The 2 backs, I mean, Elliott's suspended.
Elliott
now
doesn't show up to team meetings. Yeah, they're a mess. They're an
They did
absolute
make a trade
mess.
yesterday, though, something the Eagles didn't do.
Yeah, Jonathan, we were talking about it, man. What was the reaction on your show to when you see the Lions get a big name and you see the Commanders get a big name and the Eagles stand pat? What was the reaction?
Well, the initial reaction is, well, everybody else did something. Why didn't we? But we had kind of talked about it for 2 weeks leading up to it. My Football at 4 segment and anybody, where were the Eagles going to add someone that was going to usurp someone that's on the field? The only spot you could say was at a pass rusher. So I asked you yesterday, John, you remember one of my questions to you was there a deal that was made? This happens in baseball a lot. Like, hey, this team went out and got a pitcher for this. Could your GM have done that? So could the Eagles have made the same deal to Cleveland? Why couldn't they have called Cleveland first and made that level of deal to get Smith? Would that have helped them out enough to say?
I think it might have, but their situation was so much more complicated than Detroit's. Detroit loses Aiden Hutchinson. There's an obvious need, an obvious spot.
Well, but Cleveland doesn't care about where the obvious spot.
No, I'm saying, but it makes the urgency for the Lions easier, greater from their standpoint.
True, but Cleveland, do the Eagles not look at their situation and say, we really, like 3 weeks ago, and say, even though we're getting to the quarterback, we really need to get something.
Well, but it's more complicated for the Eagles because of Bryce Huff and I get people don't want to hear the business part of it, but the business part of it is real. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is the Lions had an open spot and the Eagles didn't. The Eagles would have had to make 2 moves to pull that off, essentially. Because if you're getting Zadarius Smith, you're playing him. And that means if you're playing him, somebody isn't playing. And that would most likely be Bryce.
And that's what we had discussed on my show a lot was, okay, there is, just because there were some hypotheticals, they bring in Budda Baker. Okay, are you really bringing in Budda Baker and then benching Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? You're paying him a lot of money. And he's not playing all that well for that money. So that was one. The other one, there was one, Josie Jewell, a linebacker. Okay, you're going to bring him in? Are you benching Dean or Bond in that situation? Probably not. So, and our point was, is Budda Baker better? Yeah, he probably is better. But better so much so that you're going to bench one of the guys you already paid for. No.
I don't see it.
Same with linebacker. Is Josie Jewell better? Maybe equal, maybe, but not enough so that you were going to bench one of the guys that you got and don't pay all that much money for it, one that you could extend.
Yeah, and Howie's not trading a pick for marginal improvement. Howie loves his picks.
And listen, Zander, they've gone down this road. They brought in Kevin Byard last year. That looked like a clear upgrade, and it did not work. They brought in Robert Quinn the year before, and that looked like, wow, this is a guy. Robert Quinn had 18 sacks the year before. It wasn't like it was 3 years before. It was the year before, and he was cooked. So I think he was at a point where, listen, I brought in these older guys and tried to stick them in the middle of the season, and it hasn't worked for us. Now, on the flip side of things, for the people out there who were complaining, I don't know one NFL trade that has happened where that trade was the difference maker. Now, you could make an argument that Kansas City getting to Hopkins might help them out and be a difference maker for them. But I don't know that there's a defensive player that gets at it. Remember a couple of years ago, the Niners get Chase Young, and people are like, oh, my God, they sent Chase Young to the Niners. Well, now they're looking to send him to his 4th team. So I don't know that there's a trade that really impacts this team because of other than if you were ready to say, and I know a lot of people chatting and watching and viewing and listening, you're done with Huff. The only thing would have been if you were ready to rip that contract up, eat the money, and then get a marginal replacement. This would have been like the level of saying, hey, we're going to go get a Derek Barnett rotational player, and you weren't going to like him anyway. Don't worry.
Yeah, no doubt. Mike, I want to ask you about just your take. I mean, I know we're moving on to Dallas, but just what were your takeaways from the game that went on Sunday? Obviously, there was a lot of controversy that came out of it. Just your overall takeaways from that game.
Well, I know I said the easy thing is to be the guy that comes in and rants and raves about Nick Sirianni and how horrible he almost cost him the game.
Low-hanging fruit, Mike Gill.
Right. The fan in you watching that game, I totally understand. I have gotten to a point in my, sadly maybe, in my career where, look, the world and the game of football has evolved, and I have evolved with it. I would take the points in almost every situation, but I do understand that that's not the game anymore. Nick Sirianni, if he doesn't go for it when the ball's on the 1 yard line for 2, if he doesn't go for it when the analytics say go, he has to answer to somebody for that. Why didn't you go for it when that card says go? Now, you might say, well, it's still his fault because he does agree with them. That's why he has this job. When they interview him and they say, Nick, 4th down and 3, ball at the 22, what are you doing? And he says, I go for it. You're hired. That's what they want in their head coach. So, yes, his philosophies are aligned. But guess what? If it's not Nick Sirianni making that decision, it's somebody else. The Eagles want him to make that decision because they feel the best version of themselves is an aggressive version of themselves. Why? That's how they won their only Super Bowl. You saw Doug Peterson on Sunday. Why is Doug Peterson not here? A lot of it is, well, he wanted this guy to be the play caller because Doug lost his aggression. And he probably had to keep answering, Doug, why are you not aggressive? We're not as good. No, you need to be aggressive if we're going to be the best version of ourselves. That's why Nick does it. And you can almost see him on the sidelines, the confliction he has, knowing he's pacing up and down that sideline, knowing I'm going to get hell for this. But if I don't do it, I'm going to get hell upstairs. So I better go for it here. Yeah. You almost feel bad for him in a sense. I mean, not bad for him. I think he wants to go for it. I think that's his beliefs. And that's why he has this job. But the fans have to understand, if he doesn't go for it, he's got hell to pay for not going for it in those situations. Now, generally, if they execute, we're all doing backflips and we're all doing another, whatever you're doing on that party moment when they get it on 4th down, and he's not getting credit for that. As he said, he came out and said it. No one's giving me credit when we get it. And he's right. It's just another footnote in a game. But if you watch games on a Sunday, the Eagles played at 4:00 the other day, so I got a chance to sit and watch at 1:00, and this is going on everywhere. I mean, most of these good teams, they are going for it all the time. And people are saying they're poorly coached. They might be poorly coached in 1995 or 2005 or 2015. But in 2024, this is what the good teams do. Detroit, if Dan Campbell was the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, he would have done the same things that Nick Sirianni did. Maybe they would have converted. Maybe they wouldn't have. But I don't hear anybody complaining about Dan Campbell. And Dan Campbell's aggressiveness got them to the NFC Championship game. It also lost it for them. Those are the battles you have to deal with when that's your organization's philosophy. So you want to be mad at Nick by proxy, but really it's the organization's philosophy.
Great take.
Yeah. What do you mean great take, Zander? It's exactly, maybe Mike said it better than me, but it's exactly the same as my take.
Am I more articulate than John?
Yes.
On that?
You are more articulate.
What I mean, but it's all
you did it better. Bravo, Mike. You did it better.
Well, and listen, I had, I'm on text chains with my buddies, and I say, I will say, I think a lot of the reactions to Nick doing this, take the points. Some of it is tied to gambling. My buddy has the over, and the Eagles don't take the points.
That's a good point. That's
Mike,
a good point as well.
The ones I have a problem with are if it can extend it and make it another possession game, I take the easy play. Like the point after the 16, when you're up 16. Why go for 2 there when the point after gives you a 17-point lead, which makes it a 3-score game? Those are the ones I have a problem with. The 4th and 3 at the 22, I'm very used to the Eagles going for it there. I know they're going for it, and I don't have an issue with it, but I think there should be some situational.
I agree with
there's none of it.
Not going to be in the second quarter.
Yeah,
no freaking way in the second quarter.
Do you remember the Eagles were playing? The Eagles were playing Monday night. Who were they playing? Tampa on Monday night. And there was almost a similar situation. 4th down, 3. They're at the 22. They were moving down to the right end zone, and they went for it. And on the screen, Aikman said it. He said, "I wouldn't go for it here," and they put a green light up on the screen that says "go," and they have a graphic now that tells you when the analytics say to go for it. And in that moment, it was up on the screen, and it said, the analytics say go for it here. So 4th down and 3 at the 22, the Eagles are going to go for it, probably regardless of time score in the first half. The second half, that might evolve and change. I don't know if the analytics change on down and distance and yard line based on time and score of a game.
It's different in the fourth quarter. Yeah,
right.
It's much different in the fourth quarter. Second quarter, especially against a foe. Remember, the Eagles have a ton of confidence as well. They think they're really good, and they are really good. It's just a matter of how good. So
the big thing is, and Zander, I agree with you. I take you've seen teams do this all year though. They kick the extra point. There's a penalty on the extra point. Then they take the point off the board, and then they go for 2. That chart says if that ball's on the 1 yard line, you go for it every single time. I mean, it's almost to the point now where teams might get a penalty on purpose to make you have to go for 2 on the extra point kick because they're saying, hey, we'll take our chance in taking the point off the board because you're going to take it off the board. But every team in this league, I watch games all the time, and they all do the same thing. They, very few of them.
Well, and people would want to make these extremes. Obviously, if you tie the game late in the fourth quarter, you're kicking the extra point, to go ahead. There are instances you're not going to do it late in the game, even if you're given a free yard. In the second quarter, the Philadelphia Eagles, no, they're going.
Their philosophy is we don't want to be up 2 scores. We want to be up 4 scores. Darius Slay said on his podcast, no, John, I don't listen to Darius Slay's podcast. My producer does. And he got me the audio that you love to hear. Uh-huh. And Darius Slay said, we love it because we want to take other teams' souls. We don't want to just go up 2 scores. We want to blow these teams out. We want to take their souls. And how do you blow a team out? You got to go up 3 scores early, not 2 scores.
Well, they like to win outside the margins. And if you're giving them a free yard, they're going to take it and they're going to say, "We're going to take advantage of this."
Yeah.
And typically, they do take advantage of it.
Now, that said, I am not a fan of the analytics. I don't like the fact that 4th and 3, you just automatically go. I think in this game on Sunday, like I equate it to, I coach youth baseball. When I see the team come up to bat and they go around the lineup twice, I get a pretty good feel of, all right, this team can't score 5 runs against us. So you manage the game differently. You're watching now. I get it. It's an NFL game, and these are NFL teams. But you're watching Jacksonville, and you're saying, if we get to 17, now we're up 3. They're not good enough. So I'm just going to keep tacking points on because this team is really not good enough to catch us. That's where I don't agree with the analytical philosophy of, hey, we're going to be aggressive here. Okay, well, guess what? You're at a point in this game where you just take points and keep stretching your lead against a team that really isn't all that good.
No, and it's even more important against good teams. Like if it was Detroit, you want as many points as humanly possible. With Jacksonville, you can make the bigger argument, as you said, that you don't really need it. But
John, Gill said a little bit of both of what we were saying.
Yeah, but for the key part is it's organizational, and if you fire Nick Sirianni, your next guy's
I agree with the organization, Zander.
Yeah.
I say I understand it. It's like anything. You get something, and then instead of making an irrational reaction, I want to get more information before I make.
Well, the best thing you said, and I've said it, but you said it much better than me. So kudos again, Mike. Is that the game has evolved? It's not. It's not the same as it was. So the take the points crowd, the run the football all the time crowd, they're behind they're in a different generation of football. It's not that I like it. It's just the reality of the situation. The game has changed.
Yeah.
I often talk about, Zander can tell, I often talk to you about how ugly the game has become, how dumbed down the game has become. I don't necessarily like it, but I'm also a realist. And as the old guy, I shouldn't be the open-minded one. I say it all the time.
Well, I'm 47. Where am I on this? Because I don't like the game. I don't like the game,
I don't like the
way
game
it's
either.
going.
Yeah.
But I have to at least make some attempt to understand it before I become an irrational jackass and just start yelling things out when I don't have any context. The context is sad. I agree, Zander. I don't like the context of where the game is going. But I have to at least acknowledge and understand it, right?
And it's ironic because whether it was Todd Bowles on Monday night, the last 3 games, opposing coaches against the Eagles played it too conservatively and it bit their ass. Doug didn't go for 4th and 3. Plus, we're looking in the press box. We're like, what are you doing, Doug? Bit him in the ass. Zach Taylor, 4th and 2, inside the 10, chance to make it a 14-3 game. It lays up. He took the points with the 27-yard field goal. Brutal decision.
Well, the whole game, Tampa, everybody's yelling at them for taking the points. You see the irony here? They're getting yelled at for taking the points. We're saying take the points.
Yeah. And in the same game, these are Brian Daboll the week before. You're up against it as Brian Daboll. You have a chance to score any points. You go for it. No, he's laying up. What brutal.
Yeah, see, that's where I don't understand. These bad teams, they can be a little bit more reckless. And yet they're the ones that are so close to the vest. And guess what? That's why you're 2-7. Because
where's the line, Mike? Where is the line between aggressiveness?
Here's the line. I can tell you where the line is. It's easier to explain in the post-game press conference when you lay up.
Chris Long was talking about this on his podcast. Why owners hire safe head coaches?
Yeah.
And I guess it's just, the way the organizations think and what they, the Eagles are a team that wants to be aggressive. They want to be ahead of the curve. What did famously Jeffrey Lurie said when he hired Chip? I want to be 5 years ahead of being 5 years ahead. So he hires Chip Kelly and then he fires him because he said, well, I'm not 5 years ahead of where I want it to be.
And I think I said on your show, the irony of all this is that Nick is kind of a firewall. Like he will occasionally, not a lot, but he will occasionally go against an organizational decision. And he will occasionally say, you know what? I'm not going to be over aggressive.
Well, how many get out of free jail cards does he have? When he paces up and down and he's like, oh, is that him saying, I have 3 get out of jail free cards left?
Yeah, that might be what he's saying.
Maybe.
Mike, what I said was the line between aggressive and recklessness. I mean, don't you think they toed that with 16 to 17? That's the only – I'm not even arguing the whole aggressive thing. I get it. They're going to be aggressive.
I would say – they don't think it's reckless because they're already up 2 scores, and they have the mindset that I just laid out. This team's not good enough to catch us. Now, on that day, they almost did, but their mindset is kind of – I saw them go through the lineup twice. They ain't scoring twice on our defense, so let's go up 3 scores here. You know what I mean? Like,
they didn't. They opted to go for 2, but the point after would have been up 3 scores.
So, to be perfectly honest, they're not.
There might be a little bit of arrogance in their aggression at times.
They're not thinking about 2 scores, 3 scores in the second quarter. They're not even fathoming that in. They gave us a free yard. Take it.
Yeah.
Take it. That's what they're thinking.
The thing the 4th and inches play, just run the damn tush push. I don't understand.
Well, yeah, I'm with you. That's the one. And I have no problem with going for it. I have no problem with that decision, but that's the one I don't agree. They kind of wavered. They kind of said, we're not having success with it. Let's go to something different. It didn't work. That I have a problem. That was 4th and inches. I mean,
the funny part is, that. I asked yesterday on my show, I asked this question. Nick Sirianni, 40-19. If he wins this week, he will be 41-19, which is, other than Matt LaFleur, will be the best.
Sources say that's pretty good, by the way.
Yeah. What is the disconnect with Nick Sirianni? Why do people not believe that he is a good coach? Why do they like what is it? I'm trying to like figure this out because he seems like this guy that would be someone that Eagle fans like. You got this young guy, he's jarving with the fans.
Well, I think it comes down to no matter who the coach is, they're not going to like him.
Well, that's what we
I think
bring
he
out
is
in
a good coach. I think the organization makes him look like a fucking asshole sometimes when they say if you get a yard, no matter what the game is, no matter what the score is, what the circumstance is, you go for 2. I think it makes you look dumb. There's no situational, awareness
has to
there.
take it. He has to be the one that takes it. No question about it.
Now,
Zander. You're
I'm going to go.
right.
I'm going to go to politics. The Eagles are sort of like the elitist politician. Like they don't give a shit. They got guys from Harvard and they don't give a shit. Like they're not going to dumb it down and explain why you do that. People might not like that, but that's their feeling.
Yeah.
Like they don't do it because it doesn't make logical sense. They do it because of the exact opposite. Over a large sample size, it's an advantage. And that's what they're playing. You're playing the odds. You're always playing the odds. And there's no debate. There's no debate. There's not like as Mike points out, when they put up the stupid thing with, I always love when they call it analytics, like he's got a corner office and they put it up there and says green. There's no debate. They run these numbers backwards and forward. There's no debates. It's better odds if you do what they do.
Yeah. It's like the banker guy on Deal or No Deal. He's sitting up in a room on the phone with like a screen that you can't see what he looks like, calling down to the Eagles. This is a go for it situation. No, they have it all mapped out.
Yeah.
Here's the way. So to go back to your original question, Zander, Monday, I'm on live. The first thing most people are doing is ranting and raving. The coach almost lost in the game. He's going to kill his team. We played a bite for John from Dan Orlovsky, who I think is a pretty level-headed guy.
I got a great quote. I can't say. I got a great quote from an Eagles guy about Dan Orlovsky.
Right, and he says, Orlovsky says, if Nakobe Dean doesn't make that catch, Nick Sirianni doesn't get out of that locker room.
He's getting fired.
He's getting fired.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I would surmise that if Nick doesn't make the decisions he made, he's more likely to be fired.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
You're 100%.
How about that? If he doesn't make the decisions he made in that game, he's more likely to be fired.
He's not getting fired either way.
I don't want to fired either way. But I don't want to say. The Eagles' mindset, and this is for the big picture, is if we're going to beat the Detroit Lions, we can't be passive. They're better than we are, or we're equals or close, or maybe. But if we don't be aggressive against that level of team, we're not going to get where we want to go. So they were taking every advantage on the way there. Sometimes they might fail. 4th and 3, maybe we didn't get it against Jacksonville. But if we keep doing that, when push comes to shove and we're playing the Lions, we've run 4th and 3 enough times in that moment that when we need it the most, it will be there for us. And that's the way they think. So that's why it's not second quarter, just take the points for them. It's 4th and 3. We got to do this against Detroit in the NFC Championship game. We need to run that play right now and practice it. And that's their mindset. It's a big picture thing against what the fans are. I want to win this week, and I want to win 40-10. And there's your difference.
Yeah. At Mike Gill show, the better communicator than me, so send your hate.
Well, he didn't make me feel like a dumbass for saying taking another point isn't always a bad decision.
No, but I'm pretty confused at I've had this stance since Monday. People are saying like I've flip-flopped all over the place. I don't agree with it. I just understand it. There's a big difference.
I agree.
I don't like it personally, but I'm a big baseball guy. Rob Thompson gets hammered. The problem is most people blame Rob Thompson. These are all organizational philosophies. The problem is the fans, we all learned a game at a certain age of our lives. And that's what our mind tells us. That's what I learned the game because my Little League coach was a great man and he taught me to lay a bunt down. Well, that Little League coach's philosophies are now out the window. You too have to change your mindset. I don't like the way baseball is played, but that's the way the game is played now.
I
So
say
it's
it all
not
the
Rob
time.
Thompson who's like when Bryce Harper, people were going nuts the day that he didn't pinch hit for somebody. The doc or whoever is in charge says to Rob Thompson, Bryce Harper's not available today. You're not playing him. So he doesn't pinch hit. JT Realmuto, you're not hitting today. You're taking the entire – and people will say, well, what's so big about one pinch hit? Doesn't matter. That's what he was told. I can't use him today. So we have to understand that these head coaches who back in like the 80s when we all learned the game, we perceived that they were the be-all, end-all of every decision. It's not like that anymore. Now, we might not like that. We want the head coach to make all the decisions, use his gut, and it's his way or the highway. Sadly, that ain't the sports world we're living in. And if that's the sports world you want, I got news for you. You're going to be angry and disappointed when people make decisions like this.
Going to be perpetually angry for the rest of my life.
It ain't coming back. Yeah, it ain't coming back. It ain't going backward. I'll tell you that. Especially because it's been successful.
Yeah.
It ain't going backward.
How many times when it's unsuccessful until we go back?
Till we go back to take the – you're a long time, man. They do not believe in that. They do not believe in that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, because the league is everybody's shifting that way. How many times, Zander, do you watch a game, they kick the extra point, and then there's a penalty, and the ball moves up to the 1 yard line, and then the team goes for it? It's almost every single time. You don't even think about it anymore. They're going to go for 2, right?
Well, you're trying to take advantage of a situation. Which,
the good teams anyway.
And by the way, it's not. By the way, it's not a big deal. I mean, the amount, like I said, the amount of time we've done talking about this, and we're not talking about how well Zach Ball's playing, and how well Nakobe Dean's playing, and how well Cooper DeJean's playing. At the end of the day, our best commenter yesterday, I put that on X, was the one who said, "Hey, dumbasses," and I'm talking about myself. It's an outlier. Move on. First of all, they're always successful with the tush push. Now, what you should really be worried about is why weren't they successful? And by the way, part of that might have been, well, they were, but they didn't call it on the field, at least on one of them.
Yeah. And by the way, the other thing is, and we say that all the teams are doing it. That's because they're emulating the Eagles, by the way. The Eagles aren't following other teams. The other teams are following what the Eagles did when they won their Super Bowl. They said, look at this team. They're aggressive. They're going for it in times that you're not supposed to. And other teams started to kind of acquiesce to what the Eagles' mindset was. And
biggest play in the Super Bowl 52, everybody's going to say either the Philly special or Brandon strip sack.
Yeah, but I hate that comparison because
the biggest play was the 4th and 1 conversion.
That's such a bad comparison, though, because that's a moment that you make a tough decision like that. Week 9 versus the Jags when you're up 16. I mean,
I'm just talking to the point of Mike. Mike is correct when he says the Eagles were ahead of the curve, and you would think the fan base actually would take some pride in that. And everybody else is copying them, and they think they should go back to 1985. Not everybody. Not every.
The Eagles are leading people to slaughter. I mean, Sam says Andy Reid hasn't shifted that way. He's looking to 3-peat.
Andy Reid's the most innovative offensive
Andy
coach.
Reid is very aggressive.
Yeah, but he's not taking 2 every single time to not make it a 3-score game, guys. He's not.
Well, what was Andy Reid's biggest criticism while he was here? The clock management, the management of these games.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned that on Monday's show, not on Birds 365 on our afternoon show. Maybe Nick is, going through the same arc that Doug or Andy went through, where he's learning how to manage.
By the way, one of the things about Nick that I think is kind of, where everybody rips Nick and people don't know what Nick does. Very few times are we talking about poor clock management, use of timeouts. Like, he has a pretty good handle on like managing the time and the score and the clock throughout his tenure here. That's been something that we don't sit here and say, what the hell are you doing with the timeouts or the clock? I mean, every once in a while, but like Andy was like almost weekly. That is something that Nick generally does a pretty good. But Andy, I don't know. You watch them play; they go for two. They'll go for two. They can afford on fourth down a lot.
With that sentiment that Andy Reid is conservative.
Yeah,
I'm not saying he's conservative, John. It's saying he's not going for the blanket of aggressiveness.
Well, I find it hard to buy.
Every single situation, no matter what the circumstance calls for. That's the difference. I'm not even saying I don't want to be aggressive.
First of all, I find it very hard to believe. I don't have Andy Reid's 2-point conversion history in front of me, so I can't speak intelligently on that. But first of all, I've said consistently, it's not blankets. It's blanket in the second quarter. I said, to say it's blanket means if you're down 6 and you score in the fourth quarter with 15 seconds left, you're going to go for 2 if they jump off sides. No, they're going to kick the extra point every single time. That's blanket. So I don't know how many times I have to say this.
I mean, I would hope that they would do that. I mean, shit. I mean, come on, you're pulling an outlier. No shit, they would do that.
You're pulling an outlier. You're calling it a blanket assessment.
No, there was 2 times in the game they could have extended the possessions and made it a 3-possession game the first time. Then they could have made it a 2-possession game.
You're so focused. It's the second fucking quarter.
It wasn't the second quarter on the last time, John. No, it was not. They were up by 6, 22-16. They could have made it a 2-score game.
We have spent so much.
Yeah, 22-16. That was one where you're saying, yeah, I agree with you there. 22-16 at that stage of the game, making it. And by the way, you're playing without A.J. Brown. It's like late third quarter, I think, when they scored there.
And Nick also spoke about, which I got into a little bit yesterday, the confidence of the play and the confidence of the players. And that's another thing you and I have talked about, Mike. You got all these people who think that this is the greatest roster in football. This is the best offensive roster. And then they have no confidence in these fucking players to execute.
Yeah. Listen, and that's why they try a 58-yard field goal when you're saying, okay, you probably should punt it, make them go the field. Their offense is kind of limited. They don't have timeouts left. Instead, he says, I have confidence in my kicker. Let's kick a 58-yard field goal.
Yeah.
Right?
That's exactly what I was talking about. And I said, I would have punted there because I've seen a few things from Jake where he's not been as good this year as last year. But I brought that up. I said, man, if you're Nick Sirianni, that's different. I don't have to worry about the player and about
that's where, like, I understand the organization's aggressiveness and fine. That's who they are. That's what they want to be. But to go back to Zander's point, sometimes your aggressiveness can be deemed reckless. You have to pick and choose when you want to be aggressive and when you don't. I don't like that you're just simply saying the card says do this. And I hope that's not what they do. Maybe he does have convictions in some of these decisions. 22-16, you get the extra point and you go up 2 scores at that stage of the game. There's not enough time for a team like Jacksonville. At some point, you got to stop saying we want to blow this team away and just beat them. You've had your chance to blow them away. You haven't been able to do it.
Oh, it was a very disappointing, performance. But even that, I mean, there's only so much you can do. And that's why the cliche of, control what you can control, sometimes things aren't going to fall your way. Let's be honest. That was whatever the NFL believes, that was a very convoluted explanation of the Saquon Barkley fumble.
Yeah.
And I do not understand it. Now, I'm not going to complain about it because I never complain about officiating, but that's a bad break. And if that play doesn't happen, they're not even in the game. So sometimes you get bad breaks, and that's why they're in the game. And it went the way it went. It went the way it went. I wouldn't have allowed Jake Elliott to kick that field goal. But again, I don't have to deal with Jake Elliott's competence. I'm just talking about in a vacuum in the moment.
Maybe if he used him for the 40-yard field goal earlier, he'd have more confidence.
Well, that's another thing. And when Zander first brought that up on Monday, I'm like, yeah, maybe that's a good point. That's a good point. But
by the way, he's my fantasy kicker.
43-yard field goal
left and right by this Jake Elliott here.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm out there yelling. Come on, put him in the game.
Mike, you got to drop him if he's on your fan. I don't do fantasy, but you got to drop him.
He made a 43-yard field goal in the game. And by the way, he kicked an extra point, but they took it off the board to take advantage of a penalty. So he had been kicking. He had been kicking. And it was close and he missed the kick. But that's sort of what happens.
Hey, listen, sometimes. If Nick didn't do these things, a 6-2 team would be a lot less boring to talk about.
Well, that's true too. But it would be nice.
The guy who does content every day. Yeah, that's how I viewed that too.
Well, people ask me all the time, like, "Oh, the Eagles are winning. That's got to be great." And I'm like, what's the best for what I do is if the team is like 4-4, and like some weeks they look good, and some people believe in them, and some weeks they don't look good, and people don't believe them. Now we have a team that's 6-2, and people still don't believe in them, and for whatever reason, fine. Do they feel like a 6-2 team? I don't know. I asked.
I'm not going to lie. I didn't feel like.
I mean, when you, I guess I don't understand the thought process. Like when
people like, I'm not. This is the NFL. I don't really care about you look at all these stats. Everything's a 1-score game. Blah blah. Yeah. People like the aesthetics of a victory. 35-10. It's the guys that say in a preseason game, I need to see a good drive out of this team. Are you thinking about that preseason drive in August now? Of course you're not. Well, maybe some people do. But it's that guy that's every drive is the most important drive of the year, the third quarter of a preseason game.
I guess I don't understand the 22-16 thing. Like, I don't understand. Are you revisiting the prior failures at 20 because the game turned to 22-16? Like that, I don't get. Like, what are you expecting Nick to do in a revisionist standpoint? It's a 22-0 game. Okay. So they fail twice, right? And then Jacksonville scores. They have the one good drive, the one really good drive they had in the entire game. They score and make it 22-8 with horrific coverage and the 2-point conversion. And then it's the Barkley play that turns it into 22-16, which again, horrific coverage on the 2-point conversion. It was like Super Bowl level coverage on both of them. I have no idea what the Eagles defense was doing. They were great other than that. And it becomes a 22-16 game. So I get, that's the point. I'm like, what? I don't understand. Like, if they would have went for it before, they wouldn't have been. I mean, are you trying to say, hey, we're going to fail on 2-point conversion? Oh, the officials are going to buck up a fumble. I don't get that thought process.
No, I mean, it's late in the third, John. So I guess can I just explain to you where I think the logic comes from, at least for me? Make it a 2-score game. It lowers their odds of coming back in the football game. You have Saquon. You have a great running game. Eagles are going to get the ball back. You can milk the clock out. It's a 2-score game. You effectively put your opponent on ice and make them have to play great football, which is I don't like their odds of doing that.
Well, why?
Because you went for 2 there and you kept it a 1-score game.
Why don't you just say, hey, tighten up on the 2-point conversion? Maybe not let receivers run free. Tighten up on the 2-point conversion. Maybe not let receivers run free. Hey, Saquon, be a little bit more careful with the football. Why is that?
The 22-16 was the field goal, John. That's when people wanted them to take the field goal, and they made the shitty tush push call away from the tush push.
Yeah, that was the fourth.
I don't even have a huge. I mean, I would have taken the field goal, but I'm not going to shit on them for it. I
thought you were going back to the revisionist aspect of it. The 4th and 1, the 4th and inches. Yeah, I have a problem with the play they called. I don't have a problem with this.
I do too. But I also could argue. I mean, you could also easily argue, or at least understand why someone would say, "Well, go up 2 there, go up 9."
I can't. 4th and inches. This team, Have you watched this team for the past
No,
3?
I know, but isn't
I mean,
that's a
That's
part of
a
the situational
that's
thing
a
that people look for?
48-yard field goal in that situation. So they're saying, all right, we'll go 4th and inches. I agree. I don't like the play call. You got a play that works 80% of the
I mean,
time.
that's 90, Mike, coming in
Yeah, you run
90% of the time. Yeah.
It's
I
funny
mean,
too. People have T-shirts made for this play. It's like everybody loves it. Now all of a sudden everybody's turned on it.
in one game, by the way, in
I'm
one
not
game.
turning on them. I think we're just looking for a little bit of nuance in each situation, but we're not getting that. And I think it's very clear to me now that
No, I'm saying like
we ain't
the
never
tush
getting
push.
it, so I might as well let it go.
Oh, yeah, but
I'm gonna
here,
cry wolf though about it all year. Johnny
here.
Mack might have a head contusion.
Oh my
by the end
God.
of it.
Well, my frustration is I have to culpate, like so many Eagles fans I get talk about this talent like it's, the greatest team in living history, basically. And I got to go, come on, settle down. Tremendous offensive talent. And then the same people say, "Oh, you got to take the field goal there." I mean,
The interesting
how
part, the interesting part about the analytics is we use analytics for when to go and when not to go. Analytics is basically a math equation, and yet we don't use the analytics of the math of what the score will be if you take the points.
that's baked into the analytics, Mike. You're going to get taken to analytics office in the corner, Mr. Analytics.
Well, then
That's
the
all baked
analytics,
in.
but that's the thing. The analytics doesn't suggest in this situation
Oh
take
no,
points, go up 2 scores, as opposed to
the whole point.
go for it and
Oh
stay on 1 score.
no. They take into account failure. Yes, they failure's a big part of it. That it's not just success. They're saying if you do this 100 times, it's going to be better than you do this 100 times. That the failure is baked into it. It's going to be way better than if you do that 100 times.
Right, but I'm suggesting is not the result of the play, what the score will be if you decide to take points over just going for it because the card says go for it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I've talked to Alec about this a lot. Alec Calaby, who runs, he's the assistant GM, so he's got a lot of responsibilities, far more. But he started out as the analytics guy. So I've had this discussion with him a lot. It's first of all, it's information. Number one, there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. That's why you don't have 100% conversion rates, 100% failure rates. Everything's got to be factored in. The Eagles are different than teams that don't have the tush push and don't have that 90 percentile. That's factored in as well. Hey, we've had this success. We're 18 of 20 coming into the game on this particular play. That's factored in as well. And then Jacksonville. And by the way, one thing I thought about during the week is maybe Doug Peterson's more prepared than anybody to understand the Eagles are going to be aggressive. And so maybe his team's a little bit more prepared to be ready for it. Maybe that factored into it as well. So there's a lot of things that factor into it.
Hopefully, Doug going to put out the how to stop the tush push in this game. 2 stops in the tush push. Uh-oh.
Yeah. And maybe it's just a matter of preparation and being prepared because a lot of times the Eagles.
If you're using the analytics on that, then get ready for them to be even more aggressive. They're saying if you stop us twice in the same game, we're not going to get stopped for weeks on this play now.
Well, I said the bigger fear for Eagles fans should be that they are wavering on this play and they think they're not as successful on this particular play. That would be the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, the play to me is fine. I mean, quite frankly, I think Hurts got in on the one, and probably we're not having as much of this discussion.
I think he got in well. So much of it is based on him not getting in and
result.
Yeah, well, and Zander gets mad at me for pointing that out, but it's all based on result. People are going back in hindsight based on result.
All right, Mike, we kept you long. We appreciate you staying here, brother, and having the conversation of Nick Sirianni, the never-ending conversation.
Can you just send me the recording of this segment so I can just plug it into my
play
show?
Plug it in.
I'll
Plug it in.
send it if you want me to.
Boy, he gets frustrated talking about it, man. Boy.
Hey, I have to do it for 4 hours.
I
know. Yesterday was interesting. I mean, we're on to Wednesday now, and we're looking back at this, and it goes back to what I said, Zander. Team 6-2. I don't know. Do people feel like this is a Super Bowl team? You're 6-2. You're right there. You're in play for the number 1 seed, and this is the conversation. Tells me that people aren't really sure about what this team is still. And I don't know if that's the scars from the last 7 games of last year. Have people moved on from those scars? Because it seems like instead of saying, man, this team's 6-2 and they're growing, it's the coach is holding us back. And that kind of tells me that people are still not sure what to think about this team.
Mike, thanks for joining the show, man. Great stuff as always. Love talking, and we appreciate all the time you give us. We'll talk to you again next week. All right, brother?
Thanks, bud.
Yeah.
At Mike Gill's show, Sports Bash 2 to 6. If you're local in South Jersey, 2 to 6 drive time.
It's really good down the shore. Whenever I'm down in the Jersey end, my girlfriend lives down there. I tune in to Mike Gill. They do a really nice job on that station. Big shout out to them. Big shout out to him for joining us. John, we got one super chat before we get the heck out of here for the break.
By the way, BLG, BLG's not a Nick Sirianni guy, so you might like BLG's takes. I think.
Well,
I don't know.
I think. I mean, I get it because it's been this debate, but I don't really have a problem with Nick Sirianni. I would just like to see a little bit more situational. Like somebody in the chat was just like, "Oh yeah, I'm sure you liked the Philly special." I'm like, it was the Super Bowl. The Patriots didn't stop scoring. I think it's a different scenario, but that's all. Prince Swayze says the Eagles shouldn't try to be like other teams. At first, it was about emulating the 49ers. Now it seems they want to mimic the Lions. Be the Eagles.
Lions are mimicking the Eagles. The Eagles were at the forefront of this. The Eagles were. I agree with the thought process. I don't like copycats. I say it all the time with Vic. I don't like all the copycats of Vic. Like, I want Vic. And the Eagles now have Vic, and it's working out, at least to this point. I don't like copycats. I don't like all the – I'm going to run Kyle's offense. I don't like it. I'm not hiring you. I don't like it. I do not like the Lions. No, the Lions follow the Eagles' lead, not vice versa.
Prince, appreciate the super chat, man. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Let's get to our commercial break. Back in 3 minutes with BLJ. Brandon Lee Gouton coming up next from Bleeding Green Nation.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.